Rain hammered the mud streets of Copper Ridge when Cordelia May Washington found the white man face down in the filth outside her door. His fine clothes were torn. His breathing came shallow and weak. The smell of whiskey mixed with something else, something wrong. She stood frozen in the downpour. Water ran off her thin shawl in streams. Her bare feet had gone numb in the cold mud. Lightning split the sky and showed her his face clearly. Jasper Whitmore, son of the richest man in Montana Territory. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The same family that owned the mine. The same mine that had swallowed her husband Samuel 6 months ago. Crushed him under tons of rock and timber while the bosses counted profits above ground. Thunder rolled across the mountains. In the distance, torch flames flickered through the rain. Voices carried on the wind. Men searching. Men with ropes and anger and questions she could never answer. If they found her with him like this, they would assume the worst. A black widow standing over a white man's body in the dark. The story would write itself in their minds. The ending would be swift and final. But if she left him here, he would die. The rain would wash his blood into the creek. The cold would stop his heart. She would become something she had sworn never to be. Samuel's voice echoed in her memory. His calloused hands holding hers on their wedding day. Your character ain't defined by how folks treat you, Cordelia. It's defined by how you treat folks when nobody's watching. The torches were getting closer. She grabbed Jasper's shoulders and dragged him toward her door. His boots carved tracks in the mud. His weight nearly pulled her down twice. Her muscles screamed as she hauled him up the single step into her one-room shanty. The door slammed shut behind them. She threw the bolt and pressed her back against the wood. Her chest rose and fell in sharp bursts. Water dripped from her hair onto the floor. Jasper lay motionless on her worn rug. His skin had gone pale as creek stones. His lips were blue. She knelt beside him and pressed her ear to his chest. His heartbeat was there but faint, like a bird trapped in a cage. She had one bed, one blanket, one pillow stuffed with corn husks. She looked at her 3 remaining coins on the table. The last of her savings. The difference between eating tomorrow and going hungry. The voices outside grew louder. Boots splashed through puddles. Someone pounded on a door 3 houses down, then 2 houses down. They were searching every home on her street. Cordelia lifted Jasper's arms and pulled him toward the bed. His head lolled back. His breathing rattled in his throat. She got him onto the mattress and covered him with her blanket. His clothes were soaked through. She lit her single candle and set it on the table. The flame cast dancing shadows on the walls. In the weak light, she could see a purple bruise on Jasper's temple. His knuckles were scraped raw. This was more than drink. The pounding on doors was getting closer. 1 house away now. She blew out the candle and sat in the darkness. Her hands shook as she picked up her sewing, needle and thread. The same torn shirt she had been mending for 3 days. Heavy footsteps stopped outside her door. The knock came hard and demanding. Open up, sheriff's business. She waited a moment, then another. Let them think she had been sleeping. Let them think she was just another tired woman with nothing to hide. The door opened. Sheriff Briggs filled the frame. His hat dripped water onto her floor. His eyes swept the room like a hawk looking for prey. Evening, Cordelia. We're looking for someone. White man. Went missing from town earlier tonight. She kept her eyes on her sewing. Her fingers worked the needle through the fabric. In and out, in and out. The rhythm kept her breathing steady. Haven't seen anyone, Sheriff. Been working on this mending all evening. His gaze lingered on the bed. Jasper lay perfectly still under the blanket. Too still. She held her breath and waited. You sure about that? Man's got family worried sick. Important family. Yes, sir. Just me and my sewing. The sheriff stepped inside without invitation. His boots left mud prints on her floor. He walked to the bed and stood over it. His hand rested on his gun belt. Time stretched like pulled wire. Cordelia's heart pounded so loud she was sure he could hear it. The needle slipped and pricked her finger. A drop of blood fell onto the white fabric. Jasper's breathing stayed shallow and even. His face remained slack. If he woke now, they would both die before morning. The sheriff turned away from the bed. His eyes found the 3 coins on her table, the watered-down soup in her bowl. The single candle stub burned down to almost nothing. "You're struggling, ain't you, Cordelia?" She nodded. No point in lying about what he could see with his own eyes. Might be worth your while to keep your ears open. Men were looking. 4. There's people who'd pay good money for information about him. He dropped a silver dollar on her table. It landed with a heavy clink next to her 3 pennies. More money than she had seen in weeks. Think about it. The sheriff walked to the door. He paused in the frame and looked back at her one more time. His eyes were cold as winter stones. "You think real hard about it, Cordelia. Some opportunities don't come twice." The door closed behind him. His footsteps faded into the rain. Cordelia sat frozen until the sound of voices disappeared completely. Only then did she allow herself to breathe. She relit the candle and looked at Jasper's face. His eyes were open, staring at the ceiling, alert and aware. He had been awake the entire time. Jasper's eyes held hers across the flickering candlelight. Neither spoke for a long moment. The rain had stopped, but water still dripped from the roof. Each drop marked time between them. He sat up slowly. His hand went to the bruise on his temple, winced. The color was returning to his face, but his movements were careful, deliberate. "You could have turned me in." Cordelia set down her sewing. The needle caught the light. "Could have. Why didn't you?" She looked at the silver dollar the sheriff had left. It gleamed next to her 3 pennies. A fortune for a woman with nothing. The price of betrayal. "Wouldn't be able to look at myself in a mirror." Jasper studied her face. His eyes were clearer now. Focused. Not the eyes of a drunk man, but someone who had been somewhere else entirely. "You know who I am." It wasn't a question. She nodded. "Then you know what this could cost you." She picked up the silver dollar, turned it over in her palm. The metal was warm from the candle heat. "Everything I got left to lose ain't worth much. Anyway." Dawn was breaking outside her single window. Gray light crept across the floor. Soon she would need to venture out. Collect her washing. Pretend this night had never happened. Jasper swung his legs over the side of the bed. His boots touched the floor, but he didn't stand. "Not yet. I don't remember how I got here. Don't remember much of anything after leaving the saloon. You were face down in the mud, more dead than alive." He touched his temple again. The bruise was darker now, purple spreading into black. This wasn't from falling. Cordelia moved to her wash basin, poured water from the pitcher. The sound filled the silence between them. She dampened a cloth and handed it to him. "Clean yourself up. Can't have you looking like you spent the night in the mud." He took the cloth. Their fingers brushed for a moment. His skin was warm now. No longer the cold touch of near death. "Why are you helping me?" She turned to the window. The town was waking up. Smoke rose from chimneys. People would be moving soon. Eyes would be watching. "My husband used to say something about character." "Used to?" "Died 6 months ago. Cave in at the copper mine." Jasper's hand stilled on his face. The cloth dripped water onto the floor. "The Whitmore mine." "Yes." The word hung between them heavy as stone. He set the cloth down, stared at his hands. "I'm sorry. Wasn't your fault. Wasn't anybody's fault. Just the mountain taking what it wanted." But her voice carried something else. Not anger exactly. Something deeper. The weight of loss that never quite settles. "Samuel, that was his name," she nodded. "Good man. Worked hard. Deserved better than what he got. Jasper stood slowly. Walked to the window. Looked out at the town his family had built with copper money and cattle wealth. His reflection stared. Back at him in the glass. My brother died 3 weeks ago. Cordelia's hands stopped moving. She had been folding her blanket. Now it lay half-finished in her lap. Thomas. He was trying to negotiate peace with the Apache bands. Stop the raids. Find a way for everyone to live without killing. What happened? Someone betrayed the meeting. Location. Apache chief brought his men thinking it was a trap. Thomas brought his thinking it was peace. Bullets don't care about good intentions. The morning light was stronger now. It carved harsh shadows across Jasper's face. Made the bruise look worse. I've been trying to drink away the sound of those gunshots. Trying to forget the sight of him lying there. Drinking don't wash away grief, just postpones it. He turned from the window, met her eyes. You speak from experience. I do. A knock came at the door, soft but insistent. Cordelia's blood turned to ice water. She motioned for Jasper to get back into bed, pulled the blanket up to his chin. Who is it? Mrs. Henderson from next door. Got your washing ready. Cordelia opened the door just wide enough to slip outside. Mrs. Henderson was a thin woman with sharp eyes and a tongue to match. She lived on gossip and suspicion. Heard the sheriff was by last night. Yes, ma'am. Looking for some missing person. Mrs. Henderson's gaze tried to peek around. Cordelia into the house. Funny thing. Thought I heard voices from your place this morning. Just me talking to myself. Gets lonely sometimes. Course it does. Poor thing all alone. Though I suppose a woman in your position might be tempted by certain opportunities. The words carried weight, meaning. Cordelia kept her face blank. Don't know what you mean, Mrs. Henderson. That reward money, $1,000 for information about the Whitmore boy. Lot of money for someone with nothing, $1,000. More than Cordelia would see in 10 years of sewing. Enough to leave this place forever, start fresh somewhere else. Haven't seen hide nor hair of any Whitmore, Mrs. Henderson smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Course not, just saying. Some opportunities don't come twice. The same words the sheriff had used. Cordelia took her basket of clean clothes, nodded politely. Waited until Mrs. Henderson walked away before going back inside. Jasper was sitting up again. He had heard everything through the thin walls. $1,000, I heard. That's more money than you've ever seen. Probably more than I'll ever see again. She set the basket down, began folding the clean clothes. Her movements were steady, practiced, but her hands trembled slightly. Why? Jasper's voice was quiet. Why choose me over that money? Cordelia paused, held up one of her patched dresses. The fabric was worn thin from washing and mending. The colors had faded to gray. Samuel and I, we didn't have much. But we had each other, had our dignity, had our word. She folded the dress carefully, set it aside. Day he died, he made me promise something. Said no matter how hard things got, no matter how much I was hurting, I wouldn't let this world make me cruel. Jasper watched her hands work, steady despite everything. Your husband was a wise man. He was. And he's buried now because of rocks that fell in a mine your daddy owns. The truth settled between them. Heavy and unavoidable. Yet you saved me anyway. I did. Even knowing who I am. What my family took from you. Especially because of that. She met his eyes. Hers were dry but fierce. You ain't your father. You ain't the mine. You ain't the rocks that fell. You're just a man who almost died in the mud. And I'm just a woman who couldn't walk away from that. Outside, the town was fully awake now. Voices called to each other across the street. Wagon wheels creaked through the mud. Life moving forward despite the grief it carried. Jasper stood Again, this time steadier. I need to get back. People will be worried. People will be asking questions. Then I'll have to find answers that don't include you. Cordelia nodded. It was the only way. The only chance either of them had. But as he moved toward the door, she caught his arm. That bruise on your head. That wasn't from falling down drunk. His jaw tightened. No, it wasn't. Someone tried to hurt you. Someone tried to kill me. The words hung in the air between them, changed everything. Someone tried to kill him. The words echoed in the small room long after Jasper spoke them. Cordelia's hand stayed on his arm. Her grip tightened. Who? Don't know. Can't remember anything after the third drink. He pulled away from her touch. Moved to the window again. The street outside was busy now. People going about their morning business. Normal lives untouched by murder attempts and midnight rescues. Need to get back to the ranch. Figure out what happened. You walk out there looking like that, questions. We'll follow. Jasper caught his reflection in the glass. The bruise had darkened to deep purple. His clothes were wrinkled and stained. He looked exactly like a man who had spent the night somewhere he shouldn't have been. Got any ideas? Cordelia moved to her trunk, pulled out a man's shirt and pants. They were clean but worn, patched in places. Samuel's clothes, about your size. He took them without comment. Started to change. She turned away, but not before noticing the other bruises. On his ribs, his back. Someone had worked him over good before that final blow to the head. This wasn't random. No, it wasn't. She busied herself with breakfast. What little she had. Cornbread from yesterday. Coffee grounds used twice already. The routine helped steady her hands. You got enemies? Every rich man's got enemies. This felt personal, though, the beating. Jasper buttoned Samuel's shirt. It fit well enough. Made him look less like the Whitmore heir and more like any other working man. Been having problems at the ranch. Cattle going missing. Books not adding up right. You think someone's stealing from you. I think someone's been stealing from us for months. Maybe longer. He sat at her small table. Accepted the cup of weak coffee she offered. Didn't complain about the taste. Thomas was looking into it before he died. Said he had suspicions about one of the hands. Which hand? Dutch Morrison. Been with us. 5 years, good worker, trustworthy. Or so you thought. Or so we thought. Outside, a commotion started up. Voices raised in excitement. Cordelia peered through the curtain. A crowd was gathering around the sheriff's office. They found something. Jasper joined her at the window. Sheriff Briggs was holding up a piece of fabric. Even from a distance they could see it was expensive. The kind of cloth Whitmore money could buy. My vest. Tore it on something when I was running. Running from what? Wish I could remember. The crowd was growing. Mrs. Henderson was there, pointing toward Cordelia's house, talking fast. The sheriff's eyes followed her gesture. We got trouble. Jasper stepped back from the window. They're coming back. Not we, me. This is my problem now. Wrong. You made it our problem when you saved my life. The knock came harder this time, more urgent. Cordelia, open up. Need to search your place. She looked at Jasper. He was trapped. No back door, no place to hide. Samuel's clothes wouldn't fool anyone up close. The bed. She pointed to the space underneath. It was tight, but he could fit. He dropped to the floor and rolled under. She threw the blanket down to hide him. The door opened. Sheriff Briggs pushed past her without waiting for permission. This time he wasn't alone. Deputy Carson followed. Young man with eager eyes and quick hands. Found blood on Main Street. Trail leads this direction. I told you last night. Haven't seen anyone. The sheriff ignored her. Started searching. Opened her trunk. Rifled through her few possessions. Treating her home like it belonged to him. Deputy Carson went straight to the bed, started pulling off the blanket. "Sheriff, look at this." He held up the clothes Jasper had been wearing. Still damp, still muddy. These weren't here last night. Cordelia's mouth went dry. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The deputy knelt down, started to look under the bed. "Hold on there, Carson." Mrs. Henderson appeared in the doorway. Her eyes were bright with malicious pleasure. "Might want to be careful how you handle those clothes. Could be evidence of all sorts of things." The implication hung in the air. Ugly and familiar. The same assumptions that had gotten other women killed. Other families destroyed. Sheriff Briggs straightened up. His hand rested on his gun. "Cordelia, you want to tell me how you came by these clothes?" She looked at the muddy fabric in the deputy's hands, at the sheriff's cold eyes, at Mrs. Henderson's satisfied smile. "Man came by this morning, early, said he needed to change clothes, gave me $2 for the service." "What man?" "Didn't give a name. White fellow, medium height. Brown hair." "That could be anyone. Could be." The sheriff stepped closer. Close enough that she could smell the tobacco on his breath. "You're lying." "No, sir." "Where'd he go after he changed?" "Didn't say headed toward the train station, looked like." Carson was still kneeling by the bed. His face was level with the space underneath. If Jasper moved even slightly, if he breathed too hard, it would be over. "Sheriff, there's something else." Carson reached under the bed. Cordelia's blood turned to ice. This was it. This was how they both died. But his hand came out holding one of her sewing needles. Must have rolled under there days ago. Just wanted to make sure she didn't have any weapons hidden. The sheriff relaxed slightly. Cordelia's not the violent type. Mrs. Henderson snorted. Every woman's the violent type when cornered. Maybe so. But she's not stupid enough to murder. A Whitmore boy in her own house. The words carried weight. If they found Jasper here alive, they might assume she had kidnapped him, might assume worse things. But if they found him dead, there would be no assumptions. Just rope and fire and quick justice. Course, harboring a fugitive's still a hanging offense. Yes, sir. Good thing I'm not harboring anyone. The sheriff studied her face. Looking for cracks, for tells, for any sign that she was lying. "Carson, check outside. See if you can pick up any tracks." The deputy left. Mrs. Henderson lingered in the doorway. Shame about that reward money. $1,000 sure would have helped a poor widow woman. Shame indeed. When they were finally alone, Cordelia helped Jasper out from under the bed. His face was pale. Sweat beaded on his forehead. That was close. Too close. "They'll be back. Not if I leave town." "Where will you go?" "Back to the ranch. Face whatever's waiting there." She grabbed his arm again. "You just said someone tried to kill you. You go back there, they'll finish the job." "Maybe, but I can't hide forever. Can't die forever either." He looked at her then, really looked. Saw the fear in her eyes, the concern. Something had shifted between them during the night. Some wall had come down. "Why do you care what happens to me?" She didn't answer right away. Went to the window. Watched the sheriff and his deputy search the muddy street for tracks they would never find. Lost one good man already. Don't need to lose another. I'm not Samuel. No, you're not. But you're not your father either. Not the mine. Not the money. You're just someone who's hurting. Someone who needs help. Someone who's brought nothing but trouble to your door. Maybe, but also someone who said thank you. Someone who sees me as more than just the help. It was true. The way he looked at her, spoke to her. Not like the others in town. Not like someone who had to be tolerated or endured, but like someone whose thoughts mattered. I need to know who tried to kill me. Then we need to be smart about it. Can't just walk back into danger. She turned from the window. Met his eyes. You saved my life last night. Now I'm returning the favor. This isn't your fight. Wrong again. Made it my fight the moment I dragged you inside. Outside, the search was expanding. More men, more questions. The net was tightening. Around them both, Dutch Morrison. You said you suspected him. Thomas suspected him, I wasn't sure. Well, someone beat you half to death and left you for dead. That narrows down the suspect list, Jasper nodded. The logic was sound. Need proof, though. Can't just accuse the man. Then we get proof. How? Cordelia smiled. It was the first time he had seen her smile. It changed her whole face. Made her look younger, stronger. I'm invisible in this town. People look right through me. Talk around me like I'm not there. You want to spy on Dutch Morrison. I want to find out who tried to murder you, and why. The plan was forming between them, dangerous but possible. She could move through town unnoticed. Could listen at doors and windows. Could gather information that would get him killed if he tried to collect it himself. This could backfire, if they catch you. Then we better make sure they don't. She started gathering supplies, food, water, her sharpest sewing scissors. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. What do you need me to do? Stay hidden. Stay alive. Let me be your eyes and ears. And if you find proof that Dutch tried to kill me, then we figure out what to do about it. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was what they had. Cordelia moved through town carrying her mending basket. Just another widow trying to scrape together enough work to survive. The perfect disguise for someone hunting secrets. The Whitmore Ranch sprawled 15 miles outside town. Too far to walk. But Dutch Morrison lived in a boarding house on Elm Street. Close enough to watch, she found reasons to linger. Hemming Mrs. Patterson's curtains on the porch across the street, delivering mended clothes to houses nearby. Each errand gave her a view of Dutch's comings and goings. He was a big man, thick through the shoulders, hands scarred from rope work and branding irons. The kind of man who solved problems with his fists first. But his clothes were too fine for a working cowhand. His boots were new leather. His hat cost more than most men made in a month. Cordelia watched him count money in the boarding house window. More cash than any honest ranch hand should possess. That evening she returned to find Jasper pacing her small room. He looked up when she entered, eyes hungry for information. What did you learn? Dutch is living better than his wages should allow. Could be gambling winnings. Could be. Or could be stolen cattle money. She set down her basket, pulled out a piece of paper covered in careful handwriting. Made a list of his movements, where he goes, who he talks to. When he's at the ranch and when he's not. Jasper studied her notes. Her penmanship was better than most educated men's. Another reminder that circumstances didn't define intelligence. He's been going to Miller's feed store a lot. 3 times this week. Strange. Ranch buys feed direct from suppliers. Maybe he's not buying feed. The next morning Cordelia positioned herself near Miller's store, swept the steps of the church. Across the street. The work gave her hands something to do while her eyes stayed busy. Dutch arrived at 10 sharp. Went straight to the back room, stayed for an hour. Left with a small canvas bag that bulged with something heavy. Coins, had to be. After he disappeared, Cordelia crossed the street. Found old Miller arranging sacks of grain. Morning, Mr. Miller. Mrs. Patterson sent me to ask about feed prices. Don't carry the kind of feed city folks need. This is ranch supply. Oh, well, I saw that man leaving. Thought maybe you sold smaller amounts. Miller's face darkened. That man's got business that ain't nobody else's concern. Course not. Just curious. Curiosity's a dangerous thing for women in your position. The warning was clear. Stay away. Ask no questions. See nothing. But Cordelia had seen enough. Dutch was collecting money from Miller. Money that didn't belong to him. She spent the afternoon watching the feed store from different angles. Saw two more men come and go with similar bags. Recognized one as Jake Summers, a cattle buyer from Denver. The pieces were falling into place. Dutch wasn't just stealing Whitmore cattle. He was running a whole operation. Using Miller's store as his headquarters, that night she shared her findings with Jasper. He listened without interruption. His face grew harder with each detail. Jake Summers bought 500 head from us last month. Paid fair price. What if he bought them twice? Once from the ranch, once from Dutch. Same cattle, double the money. Jasper stood, walked to the window. The bruise on his face was fading, but his anger was growing. That's why Thomas was killed. He must have figured it out. You think Dutch betrayed the meeting with the Apache? I think Dutch needed Thomas dead before he could expose the whole operation. The weight of it settled between them. This wasn't just theft. It was murder, planned and executed. We need more proof. I can get it. Too dangerous now. Dutch might have seen you watching, but Cordelia was already planning her next move. There's a way, but you won't like it. She told him about the fee. Church social on Saturday. The whole town would be there. Including Dutch. Including Miller. Including anyone else involved in the cattle operation. While they're all in one place, I can search Dutch's room. Look for records, receipts, anything that proves what he's been doing. Breaking into his room? That's not gathering information. That's burglary. That's justice. Jasper shook his head. If they catch you, they'll hang you. No trial, no questions. If we don't stop him, he'll kill you the moment you show your face. Better me than you. Wrong. Your death won't bring Samuel back. Won't bring Thomas back. But your life might prevent other deaths. She moved to her trunk, pulled out a small leather pouch. Inside were lockpicks. Thin metal tools that gleamed in the candlelight. Samuel wasn't always a miner. Had other skills. When he was younger, he taught you to pick locks? Taught me lots of things, including how to take care of myself. Saturday arrived gray and cold. Wind whipped dust through the streets. The whole town gathered at the church for the monthly social. Cordelia watched from her window as Dutch walked past, dressed in his finest clothes. Acting like any other respectable citizen, she waited an hour, let the festivities get started. Let people settle in for the long afternoon of gossip and food. Then she slipped out her back door. The boarding house was quiet. Everyone was at the social. Even the landlady had closed up and gone to church. Dutch's room was on the second floor. The lock was old, but well maintained. Samuel's picks made quick work of it. Inside, she found what she was looking for. A wooden crate hidden under the bed, filled with papers. Bills of sale, receipts, a complete record of the cattle operation. But there was more. Letters, correspondence between Dutch and buyers in 3 different states. The operation was bigger than she had imagined. She was photographing the documents. In her memory when she heard footsteps on the stairs. Heavy boots, moving fast. The door handle turned. Cordelia grabbed what papers she could carry, moved to the window. It opened onto the roof of the porch below. The door opened just as she swung her leg over the sill. Hey! Dutch's voice. Angry, dangerous. She dropped to the porch roof. The old shingles creaked under her weight. Threatened to give way. Behind her, Dutch was climbing through the window, moving faster than a man his size should be able to move. Cordelia jumped from the porch to the ground, landed hard. Her ankle twisted but held. She ran. Behind her, Dutch hit the ground running. His boots pounded the earth, getting closer. She cut through alleys, dodged between buildings, used every shortcut she knew. But he was gaining ground. She reached her house and slammed the door, threw the bolt, pressed her back against the wood. Jasper was there. Saw the papers in her hands, the fear in her eyes. Did you get it? Got it. But he saw me. Outside, Dutch was pounding on the door, shouting, making enough noise to wake the dead. "Open up, I know you're in there." The door shook under his fists. The bolt held but barely. Jasper moved to the window, looked out. He's not alone. Brought 3 other men. Then we're trapped. No, we're not. Jasper picked up the papers she had stolen, scanned them quickly. His face went white. This is worse than I thought. He's been selling cattle to the Apache raiders, giving them information about which ranches to hit, creating his own market, and Thomas found out. That's why he had to die. The pounding on the door stopped. Sudden silence was more terrifying than the noise had been. Where'd they go? Jasper peered through the curtain. Around. Back. They're surrounding the house. Smoke began, seeping under the door. They weren't trying to break in anymore. They were trying to burn them out. The papers in Jasper's hands contained enough evidence to hang Dutch Morrison and his entire operation. But evidence meant nothing if they died. In the fire, Cordelia looked at the flames beginning to lick at her door. At the only home she had left. There's another way out. She moved to the back corner of the room, lifted a loose floorboard, revealed a space just big enough for a person to crawl through. Samuel dug this, in case we ever needed to run. Where does it lead? Mrs. Henderson's root cellar. She's at the church social. And then we finish what we started. The smoke was getting thicker. The heat was building. They were out of time. Jasper went first. Disappeared into the narrow tunnel. Cordelia followed. The stolen papers pressed against her chest. Behind them, her house began to burn. The only home she had known since Samuel died. Gone. But the evidence was safe. The truth was safe, and sometimes that was enough. They emerged from Mrs. Henderson's root cellar covered in dirt and ash. Behind them, smoke rose from what had been Cordelia's home. Orange flames licked at the evening sky. The church social was breaking up. People streamed back toward town. They would see the fire soon. Ask questions, point fingers. Jasper brushed dirt from the stolen papers. His hands shook slightly, but his voice was steady. We need to get these to the sheriff. Sheriff won't believe us, not without more proof. This is proof. This is paper. Paper can be forged, planted, explained away. Cordelia was right. Dutch Morrison had been stealing for years. Had built relationships, trust. The word of a black widow and a supposedly dead heir wouldn't be enough. Then what do? We make Dutch confess in front of witnesses. How? She looked toward the crowd gathering around her burning house. Dutch was there, playing the concerned citizen, helping organize a bucket brigade that would arrive too late to save anything. He thinks we're dead, thinks his secrets died with us. And? Dead men tell no tales, but live ones can set traps. The plan formed between them as they watched the fire consume the last of Cordelia's life. Dutch would expect to find their bodies in the ashes. When he didn't, he would panic. Make mistakes. We need to get word to your father. Tell him you're alive. Can't trust anyone at the ranch. Don't know who else Dutch is working with him. Then we do this ourselves. They made their way through the darkness toward town. Stayed off the main roads, used creek beds and cattle paths. The stolen papers pressed against Cordelia's chest under her shawl. The boarding house was empty. Everyone was either fighting the fire or watching it burn. Dutch's room was still unlocked from their earlier escape. This time they took everything, every paper, every receipt, every piece of evidence that Dutch had been too arrogant to destroy. But they also left something behind. A note in Jasper's handwriting, short and direct. I know what you did to Thomas. Meet me at Miller's feed store tomorrow at noon. Come alone or I go to the federal marshals. They slipped out before the fire watchers returned. Found shelter in the abandoned mine shaft where Samuel had died. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Dawn came gray and cold. Word had spread through town about the fire. About the 2 bodies that should have been found but weren't. Dutch Morrison was asking questions, demanding answers. His calm facade was beginning to crack. Cordelia watched from the mine entrance. Saw him ride hard toward the Whitmore ranch. Saw him return an hour later with 3 other men. They were armed, ready for trouble. He's scared. Good, scared men make mistakes. At noon they positioned themselves around Miller's feed store. Cordelia in the church bell tower with a view of the street. Jasper hidden in the store itself, waiting. Dutch arrived early, brought his men despite the warning. They surrounded the building, covered every exit. Miller was there too, nervous, sweating despite the cool air. This is a mistake, Dutch. Should have left well enough alone. Too late for that now. They've got papers, evidence. What evidence? Thought you said they were dead. Bodies weren't. In the fire means they're still out there. Still dangerous. Dutch pulled out his gun, checked the chambers. His hands were steady, but his eyes were wild. When this Whitmore boy shows up, we end it. Permanently. What about the woman? What? About her? She's got as much to lose as he does. She's got nothing left to lose. That makes her the most dangerous kind. Miller wiped sweat from his forehead. This is getting out of hand. Been out of hand since Thomas Whitmore started asking questions. You said Thomas died in an Apache raid. Thomas died because he couldn't mind his own business. The confession hung in the air, clear and damning. From the bell tower, Cordelia could see it all. Dutch admitting to murder, Miller realizing he was in deeper than he thought. Jasper stepped out from behind the grain sacks. Dutch spun around, gun raised. Jasper Whitmore. Back from the dead. Not dead, just careful. Careful enough to steal my property? Your property? Those were Whitmore cattle you were selling. Dutch laughed. It was an ugly sound. Whitmore cattle, Whitmore mine, Whitmore land. Your family thinks it owns everything. We own what we paid for. What you stole, you mean. What you built on the backs of better men. Better men don't murder their employers. Better men don't. Let their brothers die for nothing. The words hit their mark. Jasper's face went pale. Dutch saw the weakness and pressed harder. That's right. Thomas died because of you. Because you weren't man enough to handle the business yourself. Thomas died because you betrayed him to the Apache. Thomas died because peace was bad for. Business, my business. Another confession. Another nail in Dutch's coffin. But he was past caring about consequences now. Where's your woman, Jasper? The one who saved your worthless life? Safe. Nobody's safe. Not from me. Not anymore. Dutch raised his gun, aimed at Jasper's chest. His finger tightened on the trigger. The bell tower rang out. One clear, loud note that echoed across the town. The signal they had agreed on. Dutch looked up, saw Cordelia silhouetted against the sky. Saw the rifle in her hands. Samuel's rifle. The one he had used for hunting. Drop the gun, Dutch. Or what? You'll shoot me? I'll do what needs doing. You don't have it in you. Maybe not. But I've got nothing left to lose. You said so yourself. Dutch hesitated. The gun wavered in his hands. Below him, Jasper was moving, getting closer. This is between me and him. Wrong. This is between you and justice. Justice? From a woman like you? From a woman who's tired of watching good men die for bad reasons. Miller was backing away, hands raised, wanting no part of what was coming. Dutch, let's just go. Leave town. Start over somewhere else. Can't. Start over. They've got the papers. Got the proof. What papers? Jasper held up the evidence they had stolen. Bills of sale. Receipts, letters. A complete record of Dutch's crimes. Everything. Every cattle sale. Every payoff. Every murder you planned. Dutch's face went white, then red, then something beyond anger. You think those papers matter? Think anyone will believe you? I think a jury will believe the evidence. What jury? What court? You're a dead man, and she's a black widow. Neither of you will live to see a courtroom. Dutch turned his gun toward the bell tower, toward Cordelia. Jasper moved fast, tackled Dutch around the waist. They both went down. Hard, the gun skittered across the wooden floor. Dutch was bigger, stronger. He threw Jasper off and lunged for the weapon. Cordelia's rifle cracked from above. The bullet splintered wood inches from Dutch's hand. He froze. Next one won't miss. Dutch looked up at her, at the rifle, at the counter. Woman who had lost everything and had nothing left to fear. You won't shoot an unarmed man. Won't shoot a man who's reaching for a gun either. Sheriff Briggs appeared in the doorway. Gun drawn, deputies behind him. What's all this about? Dutch straightened up, put on his innocent face. Sheriff. Thank God you're here. These two tried to rob the store. That so? The sheriff looked around, saw the scattered papers, the overturned furniture, the gun on the floor. We've got evidence, Jasper said. Proof that Dutch Morrison killed my brother and stole Whitmore cattle. Evidence can be faked. Confessions can't. What confession? Cordelia climbed down from the bell tower, still holding the rifle, still ready to use it. The one you heard if you were listening outside. Sheriff Briggs studied her face. Saw something there he hadn't expected. Strength, certainty, truth. I heard enough. Dutch lunged for his gun one last time. The sheriff's bullet caught him in the shoulder, spun him around, sent him crashing into the grain sacks. Dutch Morrison, you're under arrest for murder and cattle theft. As the deputies cuffed Dutch, he looked at Cordelia with pure hatred. This ain't over. Yes, it is. The papers were evidence now. The confessions were witnessed. Justice would be served, but Jasper was wounded. The struggle had reopened old injuries. Blood seeped through Samuel's borrowed shirt. Cordelia caught him as he swayed, held him steady. We did it. You did it. I just provided the distraction. She helped him to a chair, pressed cloth against his wounds. Her hands were gentle, but her eyes were fierce. It's over now. Dutch can't hurt anyone else. What about us? What about us? You lost everything. Your house, your life. Because of me. I lost a house. I found something else. What? My voice, my strength, my purpose. Outside, the town was buzzing with news. The Whitmore air was alive. The cattle thief was caught. Justice had been served. But inside the feed store, two people who had saved each other sat in quiet companionship. The storm had passed. The real work was just beginning. 2 weeks passed before Jasper was strong enough to travel. Cordelia tended his wounds in the room above, Miller's feed store. The sheriff had cleared it for their use while Dutch Morrison awaited trial. The town treated them differently now, still wary, still suspicious, but with a grudging respect that hadn't been there before. Jasper's father arrived from Denver, a hard man with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. He studied Cordelia. For a long moment when they were introduced. You're the woman who saved my son. I helped. He saved himself, not according to what I heard. The old man's gaze was measuring. Cordelia met it without flinching. She had faced worse than disapproval from wealthy ranchers. Sheriff tells me you're the one who gathered the evidence, risked your life to expose Dutch Morrison. Justice needed doing. Justice. He repeated the word slowly. Expensive thing, justice. Usually costs more than people can afford. Some things are worth the price. That evening Jasper walked with Cordelia through the ruins of her burned house. Nothing remained but charred timbers and ash. The wind scattered what little was left. I'm sorry about your home. It was just a place. Home was Samuel. Now he's gone. What will you do now? She knelt by the remains of her garden, found a few seeds that had survived. The fire, corn, beans, the hearty things that endured. Don't know yet. Haven't had time to think past survival. You could come work at the ranch. We need good people. Your father wouldn't approve. My father doesn't run my life. She stood, brushed dirt from her hands. The gesture was practical, but her eyes held something deeper. I'm not your responsibility, Jasper. I know that. Good, because I won't be anyone's burden again. 3 days later, Jasper's wounds had healed enough for him to travel. The doctor in town had done what he could. The rest would mend with time. His father was eager to return to Denver. Business waited. The ranch needed managing now that Dutch Morrison's theft had been exposed. Coming with us? The older Whitmore. Ask Cordelia. Haven't decided. Job offer stands. Good wages, honest work. She nodded politely but made no commitment. Trust was something she gave carefully now. That night Jasper couldn't sleep. He found Cordelia sitting by the window, looking out at the stars. Her face was peaceful but distant. Leaving tomorrow. I know. Wish you'd come with us. Why? The question was simple, but the answer was complex. He thought about everything they had shared. The danger, the trust, the quiet moments between crisis and resolution. Because you understand things. See things others miss. Lots of people have good sense. Not like yours. Not tested the way yours has been. She turned from the window. Studied his face in the lamplight. You feel guilty. Think you owe me something. Maybe I do. You don't. We helped each other. That's what decent people do, he wanted to argue. To explain that it was more than guilt or obligation. But the words wouldn't come. She was right about decent people. About doing what needed doing. The ranch could use someone like you. Someone honest. The ranch needs to heal. So do you. Neither of those things requires my presence. The next morning came too soon. Jasper's father loaded their belongings into the wagon, made arrangements for Dutch Morrison's trial, settled the affairs that needed settling. Cordelia stood on the porch of Miller's store, watched them prepare to leave. Her face showed nothing, but her hands were busy, folding and refolding a piece of cloth. Jasper approached her one last time. The offer stands, if you change your mind. I won't. But I appreciate it. What will you do? She looked around the town. At the people going about their business. At the spaces where new buildings could be built. Where new lives could take root. Figure it out as I go. Always have before. He climbed into the wagon beside his father. The horses stamped and snorted, eager to be moving. Goodbye, Cordelia. Goodbye, Jasper. The wagon rolled away. Dust rose from the wheels. She watched until it disappeared around the bend in the road. That afternoon, Sheriff Briggs found her sweeping the steps of the burned church. The building had been damaged in a fire the previous year. No one had bothered to repair it. Heard the Whitmores offered you work. They did. Turning it down? I am. Mind if I ask why? She leaned on her broom, considered the question. The sheriff had treated her fairly during the Dutch Morrison affair. More fairly than she had expected. This is my home. Such as it is. Not much left of it now. Then I'll build something new. He nodded. Understood something about starting over. About making do with what remained. Town could use a good seamstress. Someone reliable. Could use a lot of things. Schoolteacher. Someone who can read and write proper. She looked at him sharply. Teaching was work for educated people, respectable people. Children need learning, all children. The meaning was clear. He was offering her a chance. A place in the community that went beyond mere tolerance. Think about it. That evening Cordelia sat in the ruins of her house, held the corn seeds she had salvaged from the garden. Each one held the promise of new growth. New life from old destruction. A month later, Jasper returned to Copper Ridge. He came alone, riding a good horse, but dressed simply. No sign of wealth or privilege. He found Cordelia teaching children in the repaired church. Her voice was clear and patient as she helped them with their letters. Black children and white children sitting side by side. After class, they walked together to where her new house was being built. Nothing fancy. Just a solid structure with room for a garden. You didn't come with me. No, I didn't. Glad you stayed? I am. He handed her an envelope. Heavy paper. Legal seals. Her name written in careful script. What's this? My will. Had it changed? She set the envelope aside without opening it. Jasper, you saved my life, gave me a purpose, showed me what real courage looks like. That's not why you did this. No, it's not. She opened the envelope. Read the contents slowly. Her face showed no expression, but her hands shook slightly. This is everything. The ranch, the money, all of it. You'll use it better than I ever could. I can't accept this. You can. And you will. They sat in silence as the sun set behind the mountains. The town spread out below them, quiet and peaceful, ready for whatever came next. Why? Because you're the strongest person I know. The wisest, the most decent. I'm just a woman who did what needed doing. Exactly. 6 months later, Cordelia stood beside Jasper's grave. The fever had taken him quickly. Quietly, without drama or fuss. The way he would have wanted. She was the richest woman in Montana Territory now, owner of vast lands and countless cattle. But she knelt by his headstone with dirt under her fingernails and hope in her heart. The school was thriving. The mine was safer. Workers had fair wages and decent conditions. The town was changing, slowly but surely. She placed wildflowers on the grave, Samuel's favorites, Thomas's too, she imagined. Thank you. The words carried on the wind, across the valley, through the mountains, to wherever good intentions go when their work is done. Cordelia walked back toward town, toward the children who waited for their lessons, toward the future she was building one choice at a time. The sun was setting, but tomorrow would bring new light, new possibilities, new chances to do what needed doing. And that is all to the story for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you, it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.